Hey everybody, Daniel here. Welcome back for a brand new video. Today is a very special day for the channel. This is my first ever customer build. I'm super excited to be filming this video for you guys. I hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned. Alright, so we're going to go from left to right for the parts. First off, we have our motherboard. This is a Gigabyte B450 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi. We went with this board because it has built-in Wi-Fi, and my particular customer wanted this for his setup. Our processor is the Ryzen 5 3600. This is a great little processor and will give him plenty of performance for his gaming needs. The case is the NZXT H510. This is a cool little case. This is my first time ever building in anything NZXT, so I'm really excited about that. Our storage is an ADATA 480 gig SSD. For RAM, we went with the T-Force Team Group 16GB kit. This is 3200 megahertz speed. We even have some purple LED strips so we can help illuminate the inside of the case. For our graphics card, we have a Zotac Gaming GeForce GTX 1660 Super. This should pair very nicely with the Ryzen 5 3600 and give them plenty of performance. And for our power supply, we have a Corsair 550 watt 80 plus bronze rated power supply. So we're going to get started with building. We already took the motherboard out of the box, as you can see. We've got our SATA cables, we've got our M.2 screws. We're not going to be installing any M.2 drives, but we will install them on the motherboard just in case the customer wants to install M.2 drives later on. So first we're going to come in on this shot. We got to do the nice peel here. Hopefully I don't mess it up. Oh, already messing it up. Okay, here we go. That was terrible. Alright, I have the motherboard set up like this so that you guys can get a good view of it. I'm still going to be able to install all the parts without any issue. Let's get the scariest part out of the way and install our CPU. First, you have to lift up on this little silver arm here and make it stand straight up. Get your processor, your AMD processor, out of its little carrying case. And the easiest way to set this up or install it is to just line up the Ryzen logo here with the thick part of the socket right here. Just gently place it down. Do not apply any pressure. Make sure it sits in there flush. Give it a nice little wiggle. And bring your arm down until you hear it click into place. Next, we'll install the RAM. And on this motherboard, it doesn't tell you which two slots to populate, but every motherboard I've seen, you're going to be installing the RAM on slots, I think it's A2 and B2. And you skip one from the CPU, and you populate that one, you skip another one, then you populate the last one furthest from the CPU. So you press down on the two tabs in the back, line up this little keyway here with the little key on the motherboard. Apply even pressure on both sides and you hear clicks on either side. This is a very cool looking RAM. I like the sort of shark gills looking aesthetic it has. Okay, next stick. Remember, skip one slot, line up the keyway, and it's in. Now we're going to install our CPU cooler. And the great thing with AMD coolers is that they pre-apply thermal paste, and this is perfect for anybody that's not going to buy thermal paste when they're building their own computer. Oh, you know what? I forgot to remove the cooler brackets that come on any AMD motherboard. So I went ahead and took off the heat sinks for the M.2 drives. This is actually really cool that it gives you two heat sinks. They actually look pretty cool too. This is the longer one that goes on the top, and then there's the shorter one. And then they give you obviously a thermal pad under this blue protective tape. I'm not going to take that off just so we keep those clean in case he does ever install the M.2 drives. I'm just going to install the standoffs here just so they are kept safe and on the motherboard, and that way you will never lose them. And then you install them with the provided little itty bitty screws. Jesus, I'm shaky. I'm not going to tighten them really because they are not going to have any danger of coming loose. and I don't want them to be too hard to remove when it comes time to remove them. And then the heat sinks just slot into their respective little slots. And then they use their own Phillips head screws to get secured. So we'll take a little time to talk about my customer. I'm super happy that we are doing business together. He is a former IndyCar test driver back in the 80s, which is awesome because I'm a huge racing fan, motorsport fan, and the fact that he ended up finding me because of my old videos of building the computer, the sim racing PC build. He's actually going to be using this for sim racing as well, and I'm just super excited that he's going to join the iRacing family and get on the track with all of us. So now that we have all of that, we are ready to install our cooler. We are going to install the cooler with the AMD logo facing the back of the motherboard, just because with some RAM slots, if you're populating all 4 slots, you may interfere with your RAM stick that's closest to your CPU. So we want to install it with the AMD logo facing the back of the motherboard. Just line up all 4 of your screws. I am not lined up. There we go. And like I said in my previous video, tighten in a star pattern. Just get one started, go to the next corner, get the other started. Okay, we are installed. And I will flip the motherboard around so that you can see me install the CPU fan connector, and that goes into this little gray connector here. Written on the motherboard it says CPU fan and CPU opt, so we're going to go with the top one here since that one says CPU fan. Just like that. And like I said in my last video, it's got a little tab sticking up and a couple of notches on either side of the connector. You just line those up and you are good. Tuck your cable away right here and it's hidden. Now you can't even see it. Alright guys, well that is it. If you're not installing anything else, you are ready to install your motherboard into the case. Let's go ahead and get ready for that. Alright, now we are finally ready to install it into the case. First we got to take off the front and rear side panels. So this one is really cool. It just has one thumb screw back here and then it just pops free of the case. Want to be careful because it is glass. There we go. So it's just got these little sort of plastic knobs that slot into a couple of holes on the case. And then we'll take off our rear side panel, another couple of thumb screws, and then it just comes free of the case. Alright, let's get a good look of the case. So here's the rear. I really like that they have included some cable routing channels. That's really cool. Here are the front panel connectors here, tucked in a nice bag. And NZXT is awesome. They give you all your hardware in a little sort of hard drive sized box and they put it in the hard drive cage. So that's really cool. Alright, so this is the hardware. It just came out of this little box here. You can tell NZXT really takes pride in their product by putting something in all individual baggies. It's amazing how cheap this case is and how much pride they take in their products. This is only a $70 case, by the way. So this is all our hardware. Let's get everything out of the bag. We'll leave all the zip ties in there for now. So we have a 3.5 millimeter, and this is your mic and headphone input. I believe this is a front panel adapter for all of your front panel connectors. You got some zip ties that decided to stow away. These look like power supply screws. These are spare fan screws. I believe these little guys are motherboard screws. And these appear to be just SSD screws. Or I may have that backwards. These are probably motherboard screws, these are probably SSD screws. If you're ever unsure, make sure you consult your case manual for all of the hardware that's included. Alright, so here is the nice open view of the case. NZXT has pre-installed all of your motherboard standoffs, and they even have one standoff that has like an alignment pin that you don't screw anything into. It just lines up your motherboard in the center screw hole for it. And up front here we have a fan, I guess, install bracket. We're going to remove that, and we're going to install some fans later so we have maximum airflow. One thing I didn't point out when I installed everything on the motherboard is that we actually have a fixed I/O shield. This is going to be very convenient when we're installing because we don't have to mess with this and stick it into the back of the case. Alright, so as always, go in at an angle. I hope I don't have to remove that rear fan. I shouldn't. Awesome, we are in. There we go, and we are lined up, ladies and gentlemen. And the motherboard is installed with these more coarse screws. Hopefully you can get a nice shot of that. But you can see the threads are not very fine on them. And there are 8 total screws that you need to install. There is usually 9 with a full ATX build, but this has 8 because one of them is taken up by that alignment pin. And I'm going to point out where all those screw holes are. Hopefully we have a good amount of light in there, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The 9th one is usually right in the center right here, but NZXT has installed that one alignment standoff so you don't have to install that 9th one. So I'm going to install those screws. We'll catch you in the next shot. Alright guys, so we are going to install some fans on this front fan panel thing, that's what I'm going to call it. And they use these really coarse, really sharp fan screws. The reason they use these is because the fans are just plastic. The fan housings are just plastic, and these actually cut into the plastic and make their own threads. So we're going to install a couple just so you see, and then we will just cut to installing the fan panel. You gotta provide some downwards pressure. Alright guys, so I actually messed up in how I installed the fans. I put them on this side rather than on the back. And the reason that's not a good thing is because if I would have left them how they would have been getting choked off by being too close to the front panel right here. So I wanted to move them back so that they could actually draw fresh air in from this little slot back here. There's actually some perforations on the rear side panel where airflow is drawn in. And what I haven't pointed out in any of my videos actually is how to install fans, or how to know what direction they're going to be pulling air. So if you look at the back of the fan, you have these brackets here. And the air is always going to be moving that way out of those little, these little brackets or these little cages right here. So let's get this installed. Let's route our cables, try and be as tidy as possible. Okay. Alright, so here are our 2 SSD brackets. We're going to use, I guess we'll just go with this one. So just take out the Phillips head screw. Press down on that little tab, pull it on out, and then we're going to mount the SSD with cables pointing down. Going to use the screws included with the motherboard, or sorry, the case hardware, to secure it to the panel. There's 4 screws, 1 on each corner. We can reinstall it. There we go. And that's it. Storage is installed. If you're installing any of your spinning drives, your 3.5-inch drives, they would just slide in right here. I don't think they included any like sliding drawer bracket things that you would actually just slot it in and then it would click into place. I think you just pull it out and then install screws on the sides of it. But we're actually going to pull that out now because we're not going to be installing it, and this will give me extra room for cable management. I don't have a way to hold on to it. Here, I'll just do this. And our drive cage is free. So you would just line up the hard drive. If you were installing a 3.5-inch drive, you would just install it with these little screw holes, and then the screws included in your case's hardware. So we'll set this aside because we will not be using it. Let's get ready for our power supply. All right, so here's our Corsair power supply. I'm actually going to install this with the fan facing up. Normally you wouldn't do that because obviously you have an air intake down here, but I don't know what my customer Chris is going to, I don't know where he's going to put it, whether it's going to be on carpet or anything, and you'd never want to put a power supply facing down when you're installing it on, or when the case is going to be sitting on the carpet. So we actually have ventilation holes right here, and the power supply is going to be able to pull fresh air from that. So we'll just, actually, let's put it in the right way. Just slot it in just like that. And then the power supply has a very convenient package that says 4 PSU. And you install it, one in each corner, one here. We'll just hand thread them for now. One down here. Oh, no, I missed the hole. One there. Oh, I threw one. Chris, you're not getting a power supply screw. Sorry, buddy. One there. All right, we found the screw. Let's put it in the final hole. All right, and then just tighten them down one by one. And your power supply is installed. All right, so I am going to begin cable management, but before I do that, I wanted to point out which cables to connect to your storage drive. So we have our SATA power cable. It's this longer L sort of female connector that goes on to the SATA drive. We'll install that now. Let me see which side it goes on. This side over here. Yes. Okay. And I'm going to use this one because it has the Molex connectors on it, and the LED strips that we have are powered by Molex, so that's going to allow me to just use one SATA cable from the power supply. Since it's not modular, I don't have the ability to plug in cables that the only cables that I need. So let's plug in our SATA data cable. I'm going to use the straight end and then the 90-degree end, so that on the motherboard it's going to look cleaner on that side, and you'll see when we actually connect all the cables to the motherboard. So let's line up the smaller connector. If I can find it, here, I'll just do it the right way and look at it. There we go. All right, here comes the time lapse. Alright, so let's take a quick break from the time lapse. I wanted to show you guys this little front panel connector that Gigabyte provides with their motherboards. I've never actually used this, so hopefully I figure out how to use it. And NZXT actually has their own style of front panel connector that plugs in with this connector that says F panel. Alright, so we have our power LED positive and negative, we have our power switch positive and negative, and on the reverse side we have our reset switch positive and negative, and then our hard drive positive and negative. So all we got to do is just clip the connectors in to these little guys here, and then we just slot this in on the motherboard. So that's pretty simple. Back to the time lapse. let's take another quick break from the time lapse. With the Arctic fans that I have up in the front, they actually come with these very convenient connectors that you can actually daisy chain some fans. So I'm actually going to try and daisy chain the top fan and the rear fan with the front fans so that I can try and kind of clean up cable management and try and just have one connector coming from these fans going onto the motherboard. Alright, so we are ready to start plugging in some cables onto the motherboard. First we're going to start with the front panel connectors. We'll start with the HD audio connector. You can see it even says HD audio on it. The connector has 9 pins and one of them is blocked off. So you're going to line that up way over here in the bottom left corner. Yeah, bottom left corner. And you can see one of those pins is missing, and that's where you're going to line up that one blocked off pin. So let's line that up. Okay, HD audio is plugged in. This one is a fan connector. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do and get all the fan connectors to plug into just one fan header on the motherboard. So this one is going to go to this little fan header right here. And as always, line up the little tabs with line up the notches with the tab on the motherboard. Okay, there's your fan. And then here's our nice convenient front panel connector. We are just going to plug that in, make sure that the hard drive and reset switch are facing down. This case doesn't have a reset switch, so there's no connector going into that one. Just slot it in just like that. Plug our USB 3.0 in. And this one is the long blue connector, and it has a little tab or a little notch on it. That lines up with a missing keyway on the motherboard. Just give yourself some slack, line it up. Connect it. That was a nice satisfying click. The other connectors we need to install are our SATA hard drive, and that's going to go into one of these two ports. Doesn't matter which one, because we're only installing one. So we're going to go with this top one, because I believe that's SATA 1 in the BIOS. That's really nice because I chose the 90-degree one. This is our 24-pin motherboard power connector, or the I think it's the ATX power. Let's try and pull us some extra slack, make it do a nice U-turn. The first time you're connecting this big old connector, always the hardest, so it just takes a little extra pressure and it's on there. And this one's going to be a bit of a pain. This is our 8-pin CPU power connector. I may need to give myself some more slack in the back to be able to plug it in. And this goes on the very top right corner back here. This is probably the only downside of having big heat sinks on your VRMs, is that it makes it a little bit of a pain, but we will get through it. Alright, we are ready to install our graphics card, our cute little Zotac GeForce 1660 Super. Before we get it installed, we first have to free up a couple of the PCIe brackets over here on the back side of the case. And to do that, we have to take off this locking bracket first. And then it's going to be these two, the second and third slots. And then come down onto your motherboard. Make sure you press this little tab down towards the motherboard, similar to installing a RAM module. Line up your graphics card. Press down. You got a nice firm click. Reinstall the PCIe bracket screws, one here. And then we get our locking bracket back in. Okay, now we are ready to plug in PCIe power. And similar to both the 24-pin ATX power and your EPS power, you have this little clip here that grabs onto this little notch on your GPU. There we go. Now our GPU has power, and we will hide this second cable out of the way with a zip tie. All right, everybody, I think we are ready for our first test boot. Let's come up here. Actually, I just turned off the power supply, so let's reach around to the back. There it is. I think we just saw some lights flash in there. And 3, 2, 1. We've got our one purple LED strip. This one isn't coming on. I may have unplugged it by accident. We'll get to that. We've got our Gigabyte logo there lighting up. We got some RGB down here on the lower left. Right now it's just doing its multiple boot cycles. It's just training the memory. I think we have some life. And it should go right into the BIOS. Reboot and select proper boot device or insert boot media. It's not going to let me go any further, so no big deal. I'll take this time to troubleshoot the LED strip, and then we'll get right back to it. All right, guys, let's get this test boot going. I think I got to turn the power back on again. Oh, yep, we just saw some lights flicker. There we go. Now we got our bottom purple and our top purple. There we go. BIOS has been reset. Please reconfigure BIOS setup items if needed. Okay, here's our pretty easy to navigate Gigabyte BIOS. Alright, so good news is we have all 1, 2, 3, 4 fans spinning. Obviously our CPU fan is spinning. We got our 1 8 gig stick here, 1 8 gig stick here. Total memory 16 gigabytes, that's good. This is our processor right here, the Ryzen 5 3600. Our storage drive down here. Over here we have our fan profiles. Our CPU temp is right up here. Alright guys, we have finally made it. We've got an OS installed. We've got a PC that's got all the latest drivers for the motherboard. Pretty much everything's done. The only thing left to do is to just test. I'll do that off camera and let the customer know how it goes. Remember, I do offer this as a service. Just hit me up on any of my social media platforms. I'd be more than happy to help you guys out. I've just cracked 100 subscribers, which is huge for me. Thanks everyone for subscribing. Remember, if you are not yet subscribed, make sure you get subscribed so you never miss another video. Hit that notification bell, smash that like button for me so we can grow this channel. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Have a good one.